Sweden has always been known as a country of aviation and defense innovation. But when the world speaks of drones today, the conversation tends to revolve around Israel's Heron, Turkey's Bayraktar TB2, or America's MQ-9 Reaper. Rarely does Sweden appear in that same breath. Yet the evolution of unmanned aerial vehicles, and the role they now play in conflicts from Nagorno-Karabakh to Ukraine, makes it impossible for Stockholm to remain on the sidelines. The paradox is clear. Sweden is the creator of legendary combat aircraft like the Draken, Viggen, and Gripen, but it has never truly invested in UAVs as a strategic pillar of its defense. That is now beginning to change. And the path Sweden takes in drones could shape its role within NATO and the Baltic theater for decades to come. The story starts with Sweden's cautious experimentation in the late Cold War period. The Swedish defense establishment always focused on survivable, domestically produced combat aircraft, radar, and electronic warfare. The Saab 35 Draken was a marvel of its age. The Viggen introduced canards and short takeoff capability. The Gripen became one of the most cost-effective fourth-generation fighters in the world. In contrast, drones were treated as niche assets. The best known is the Saab Skeldar V200, a rotary-wing UAV designed for naval reconnaissance. The Skeldar could take off from small decks, carry sensors, and provide overwatch, but it was never meant to be a combat drone. For decades, Stockholm saw UAVs as supplemental, not decisive. This mindset seemed reasonable in a Europe where high-intensity warfare was thought to be unlikely. Yet the wars of the 21st century changed the paradigm. The United States demonstrated the value of armed UAVs in Iraq and Afghanistan. Israel used drones to dominate its border wars. Turkey transformed itself into a drone power, with the TB2 and Akinci giving it enormous influence from Libya to Ukraine. Sweden, meanwhile, remained conservative. But then came the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. And suddenly UAVs of every type, from cheap quadcopters to long-range kamikaze drones, were rewriting the rules of war. No other technology has shaped the battlefield more dramatically in the past 3 years. Sweden could not ignore this reality. In 2023 and 2024, as Stockholm deepened its support for Kyiv, it began supplying Ukraine with UAV systems alongside CV-90 infantry fighting vehicles and Archer artillery. These donations were not just gestures of solidarity, they were test cases. Sweden was able to collect feedback from the front lines about how its drones performed against Russian jamming, how they could be integrated into NATO systems, and what weaknesses remained. The lesson was sobering. Sweden had technological expertise, but it lacked a family of drones that could truly compete with Bayraktar TB2s or Reapers. Saab Skeldar was versatile, but it was not a strike platform, and without a strike platform, Sweden risked being relegated to a secondary role in the UAV revolution. That brings us to the present moment. Within Sweden's defense industry, there is now a debate over how far to push into unmanned systems. Saab is investing in projects that tie UAVs directly to the Gripen E-fighter program. Concepts for loyal wingman drones, smaller unmanned jets that fly alongside manned Gripens to carry sensors or weapons, are being discussed. At the same time, naval planners are exploring how Skeldar derivatives could act as the eyes and ears for the new A-26 Blekinge-class submarines and Pojanma-class corvettes. A Swedish navy equipped with unmanned scouts could increase its survivability in the narrow and contested waters of the Baltic Sea. But while research is ongoing, Sweden still lags behind when it comes to medium-altitude, long-endurance UAVs, or heavy combat drones. The country simply does not have a Bayraktar or an MQ-9 equivalent in serial production. Looking into the near future, the pressure to close this gap will only intensify. NATO integration changes Sweden's defense obligations fundamentally. No longer is Stockholm defending itself alone. It is part of an alliance where burden sharing matters. And in NATO, drones are no longer optional. They are required to provide persistent surveillance, rapid strike capability, and electronic warfare support. If Sweden wishes to be more than a niche supplier, it must invest in UAVs at scale. The next 5 years could see the emergence of a Swedish drone family, smaller tactical UAVs for army units, naval UAVs for maritime surveillance, and perhaps a medium-class combat drone developed jointly with Finland or Germany. Given Sweden's strong tradition of export-oriented defense production, such a program would also aim at foreign markets. Beyond the near term lies the long-term vision, where the stakes are even higher. The Baltic Sea is emerging as one of the most militarized zones in the world. Russia's exclave of Kaliningrad bristles with S-400s and Iskander missiles. NATO's eastern flank is reinforcing itself with US troops, Polish modernization, and Baltic state investments in air defense. In this environment, drones will be indispensable. Imagine swarming UAVs launched from Gotland to saturate Russian air defenses, kamikaze drones designed to strike ships moving between Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg, and undersea drones hunting submarines. Sweden is uniquely positioned to innovate in these domains if it chooses. Its electronics industry, radar expertise, and tradition of small, efficient design all point toward a future where Swedish UAVs could be as distinctive as the Gripen once was. But there are challenges. Drones require not only airframes, but also engines, data links, secure satellite communication, and mass production capacity. Sweden must decide whether to build these alone or to partner with allies. Budgetary trade-offs are real. Money spent on UAVs is money not spent on Gripen upgrades or Archer artillery. Politically, Sweden has to overcome its own inertia, the cultural attachment to manned aircraft that has defined Saab for decades. There is also the question of scale. Can Sweden produce drones in the thousands, as Ukraine now demands? Or will it remain a boutique supplier of high-end platforms? In the end, Sweden's future as a UAV power will depend on its willingness to embrace the lessons of Ukraine and act decisively. The age of drones is here, and neutrality is no longer an option, neither in foreign policy nor in technology. From the modest Skeldar to the possibility of loyal wingmen flying alongside Gripens, Sweden has the potential to carve out a vital role in NATO's unmanned ecosystem. The alternative is to continue relying on allies for the very systems that are redefining modern warfare. For a country that has prided itself on defense autonomy, that would be an unsatisfactory outcome. So the question is open. Will Sweden transform its UAV sector and become the drone hub of Northern Europe? Or will it remain overshadowed by Turkey, Israel, and the United States? The decisions made in the next decade will answer that. And for viewers following this journey, it is worth reflecting on what kind of Sweden we want to see in the alliance. One that simply follows, or one that leads? What do you think? Can Sweden truly become a drone power in the same league as Turkey or Israel? Or is that ambition beyond its reach? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want us to continue deep diving into these questions of strategy and technology, make sure to subscribe and support the channel. Your engagement helps us bring more serious, fact-driven analysis on the future of European defense.